You are listening to Chamber, original horror stories told in the dark.
Tonight's tale, The Missing Hitchhiker. It begins with rain, an empty highway, and a pale figure waiting under a broken light. The kind of scene you drive past, unless you're the one who stops. Jason had been driving for hours, the kind of trip where the road hypnotizes you. The headlights carved out a narrow tunnel of wet pavement, and beyond that was nothing but black forest, black sky, and the endless hiss of rain on the windshield. His fingers tightened on the wheel every time his tires slid over another patch of standing water. He should have stopped earlier, found a cheap motel along the way. But he told himself the same thing over and over. Just another 30 miles. If he pushed through, he'd be home before midnight. The clock on the dash read 11:07 when he saw her. A girl standing on the shoulder under a lonely streetlight. The lamp sputtered against the storm, flashing shadows across her pale face. She didn't wave, didn't step back when Jason's car approached. She just stood there, as if she'd been waiting. Jason's foot hovered over the brake. His gut told him to keep driving. Who hitchhiked out here in weather like this? But the way she stood in the rain, water streaming off her hooded coat, made something twist in his chest. He slowed. His wipers thudded once, twice, clearing the glass just enough for him to see her eyes. Dark, fixed on him. The tires hissed as he eased onto the shoulder. The girl didn't hesitate. She grabbed the handle, yanked the door open, and slid into the passenger seat. The smell of wet fabric filled the car immediately. Water dripped from her hair, down her coat, into the floor mats. "Thanks," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost fragile against the hammer of the rain. Jason cleared his throat. "No problem. Where are you headed?" She kept her hood up, face turned toward the windshield. "There's a diner, maybe half an hour up the road. Just drop me there." Jason nodded, shifting back onto the highway. The car filled with the rhythm of the storm again. Rain on the roof, wipers dragging, tires cutting through water. But now there was something else too. The heavy silence of another person breathing beside him. He kept glancing at her, careful not to let it show. She hadn't moved since getting in. One hand rested limp in her lap. The other was buried deep inside the pocket of her coat. The hood cast her features in shadow, just enough that Jason couldn't read her expression. He thought about asking her name, about breaking the silence. But something in the air, thick, uneasy, told him not to. Jason adjusted the wipers, their rhythmic squeak cutting through the static roar of rain. Sarah sat quietly in the passenger seat, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the watery dark ahead. For a few minutes, the only sound between them was the engine and the storm. He cleared his throat. "So, where are you headed?" Sarah turned, offering a faint smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just down the road. I live off Route 9, not too far." Her voice was calm, steady, but it carried that strange flatness that made Jason's skin prickle. "Pretty nasty night to be out walking," he said, trying to sound casual. "I didn't have much choice," she replied, gaze snapping back to the windshield. "Some places, you just can't stay." Jason forced a laugh, but it died in his throat. The minutes dragged on. Every so often, he glanced at her. Sarah sat too still, like a passenger in a photograph. No restless shifting, no sighs of impatience, just silence. He noticed her dress again. The fabric clung damply to her arms, like it hadn't dried despite the heater blasting. And there was something off about the smell in the car. Not strong, just a faint trace of damp earth. And something else. Metallic. Jason gripped the wheel tighter. You said Route 9, right? I don't remember seeing any houses out there. Her head turned, slow and deliberate, eyes catching his in the dashboard glow. They're there. You just have to know where to look. The static on the radio suddenly spiked, loud enough to make Jason flinch. He twisted the knob, but every station was nothing but white noise. For a moment, just a moment, he swore he heard a voice in the static. A woman's whisper, too faint to make out. He snapped the radio off. The silence after was worse. Do you hear that? Jason muttered. Sarah tilted her head, listening. It's never quiet out here, she said softly. The road seemed endless. Trees lined both sides like a black wall, branches clawing at the sky. Jason glanced at the clock, 12:47. But hadn't it been 12:47 10 minutes ago? His pulse quickened. You sure this is the right way? Sarah smiled again, wider this time. Her teeth looked too pale in the dim light. Yes, you'll see the turn soon. Jason's stomach nodded. He didn't know why, but he felt it then. A sharp, undeniable certainty that whatever turn Sarah was leading him to, he should never take it. Jason tightened his grip on the wheel. He'd lost track of how long they'd been driving. The rain had eased to a mist, but the wipers still dragged across the windshield in slow, tired arcs. His headlights cut through a fog so thick it seemed to swallow the road whole. He cleared his throat. Keep it normal, he thought. Just keep it normal. So, Sarah, where exactly did you say you lived again? The hitchhiker smiled faintly, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Home. Right, what town? She tilted her head. You'll see it. Soon. Jason's stomach nodded. He glanced at the dashboard clock, 12:17, just as it had been 20 minutes ago. He blinked, shook his head. Maybe the thing was broken. He tried the radio, anything to fill the silence, but the static that hissed through the speakers was different now. It pulsed, almost like breathing. He twisted the dial and swore he heard a word form in the static, his name. Jason. He snapped it off and forced a laugh. Old truck, radio's shot. Sarah watched him, unblinking. Then softly she began to hum, a melody with no pattern, rising and falling like something half-remembered. Jason's chest tightened. He didn't know the tune, but somehow it made his teeth ache, like pressure building inside his skull. Hey, he said quickly, voice sharper than he meant. Cut it out. She stopped humming, but the smile lingered. Almost there, she whispered. Jason's palms were slick against the wheel. He leaned forward, eyes straining into the fog. The road curved, dipped, and for a moment he thought he saw lights ahead. A small town, maybe. Salvation. But as he blinked, the lights spread wide, becoming headlights. A car barreling straight toward them. Jason swerved hard, tires shrieking, gravel spitting from the shoulder. The oncoming lights blazed white, then blinked out. The road was empty again. He panted, hands trembling. When he looked to the passenger seat, it was empty. His heart froze. Sarah? His voice cracked. The seatbelt still hung loose, unbuckled. The faint outline of water, rainwater maybe, soaked into the fabric where she had sat. Jason slammed the brakes. The truck fishtailed and skidded to a stop. He threw the door open, stumbling into the cold night air. Sarah, he shouted into the fog. Where the hell are you? Only silence answered. Then, a soft voice directly behind him. "I never left." Jason spun, but no one was there. Only the open truck door swinging on its hinges. The static roared back to life, spilling from the speakers though he hadn't touched the radio. Louder, layered now, dozens of voices, all whispering, chanting his name. Jason staggered back, tripping over the wet gravel. He looked up into the fog, and for just a heartbeat, he saw her standing there. Sarah, pale and dripping, her hair clinging to her face. Eyes hollow, mouth curled into that same thin smile. And then she was gone. Jason's breath came ragged. The mist swirled, the world tilted, and he realized the road had vanished. He stood in the middle of a gray nothing, his truck dissolving into the fog around him. The last thing he heard was Sarah's voice, close enough to feel her breath on his ear.
"You picked me up. Now you don't get to put me down."
The static swallowed everything. You've been listening to Chamber, The Missing Hitchhiker, a story where one choice on a dark road leads somewhere you can never return from. Remember, not every passenger is meant to be picked up. And sometimes, the ones you let in never leave. Enter the chamber again next time, if you dare. Until then, keep your doors locked and your headlights bright.